Welcome back to La Paz News. We are here to talk about the causes of teenage suicide. What teenage suicide is exactly, teens' thoughts if they're about to commit suicide, and how to try and prevent it. I am your host, Leonardo Macias, and I will inform you about teenage suicide. A life loss is a terrible tragedy for friends, family, and community, especially if the death is caused voluntarily by the same person. This is known as suicide, and every person, even if they deny it, has the capability to commit it. We will now talk of a more inside view of what teenage suicide is. Teenage suicide is the third leading cause of death from 15 to 24-year-olds. It is rare among children in between the ages of 9 and 14, but the risk increases dramatically when kids reach the teenage stage of their lives. Now, teens' risk of committing suicide is also increased in the presence of firearms at home. 60% of the suicides in the US are committed with a gun. Suicide rates vary in the commuters are male or female. Girls think about and attempt suicide about twice as often as boys, and tend to attempt suicide by overdosing on drugs or cutting themselves. Yet, boys die by suicide about 4 times as often as girls, perhaps because they use more lethal methods such as firearms, hanging, or jumping from heights. The teenage stage of life can be a stage of tremendous possibility, but it can also be a period of stress and worry. There's pressure to fit in socially, to perform academically, and to act responsibly. Adolescence is also a time for sexual identity and relationships and need for independence that often conflicts with the rules and expectations set by others. Young people with mental health problems such as anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, or insomnia are at higher risk for suicidal thoughts. I will talk about factors that explain about the risk of suicide with live footage from teens. A psychological disorder, especially depression. Feelings of distress, irritability, or agitation. Feelings of hopelessness and worthlessness. Emotional, physical, or even sexual abuse. Suicide among teens often happens after a stressful life event, such as problems at school, a breakup with a boyfriend or girlfriend, the death of a loved one, a divorce, or a major family conflict. Teens who are thinking about suicide might talk about suicide or death in general, give hints that they might not be around anymore, talk about feeling hopeless or feeling guilty, pull away from friends or family, write songs, poems, or letters about death, separation, and loss, start giving away treasured possessions to siblings or friends, lose the desire to take part in favorite things or activities, have trouble concentrating or thinking clearly, experience changes in eating or sleeping habits, engage in risk-taking behaviors, lose interests in school or sports. Many teens who commit or attempt suicide have given some type of warning to loved ones ahead of time. So it's important for parents to know the warning signs so teens who might be suicidal can get the help they need. Some adults feel that kids who will say they are going to hurt or kill themselves are just doing it for attention. It is important to realize that if teens are ignored when seeking attention, it may increase the chance of them harming themselves or worse. Getting attention in the form of ER visits, doctor's appointments, and residential treatment generally is not something teens want, unless they're seriously depressed and thinking about suicide or at least wishing they were dead. It's important to see warning signs as serious, not as attention-seeking and to be ignored. Keep a close eye on a teen who is depressed and withdrawn. Understanding depression in teens is very important since it can look different from commonly held beliefs about depression. For example, it may take the form of problems with friends, grades, sleep, or being cranky and irritable rather than chronic sadness or crying. It's important to keep the lines of communication open and express your concern, support, and love. If your teen confides in you, show that you take those concerns seriously. A fight with a friend might not seem like a big deal to you in the larger scheme of things, but for a teen it can feel immense and consuming. It's important not to minimize or discount what your teen is going through, as this can increase his or her senses of hopelessness. If you are the friend of a suicidal teen, tell him that you need him and he is important for you. If the teen does not respond, you can suggest psychological help. Ask an adult or the teen's parents to help him or talk some sense into him. If those around you seem uncomfortable about reaching out, initiate the conversation and ask for their help. Hope this information can be useful. I know it is a theme people might consider dark or intense, but it is necessary for both teens and adults to learn this. I hope you take this seriously. Every teen watching this needs to consider what I have said, because there is never enough reason to commit suicide. We're now going to Studio B, where Fernando waits with an interesting report about acne.
Thanks, Leo. If you look very closely at the skin surface, you can see thousands of tiny openings called pores. These are the openings of follicles which are under the skin surface. Tiny glands continuously pump oil, also known as sebum, into the follicles. The oil travels up and into the skin. The follicle is lit with cells that produce a material called keratin. This keratin joins the oil that is flowing through the follicle. Bacteria can also be found in the follicles. Every hour of every day, this mixture flows out of the pore openings, as long as pores remain. Unfortunately, pores can become clogged and starts the acne process. Creams or makeup may block them, but most importantly, the pores can become plugged by touching or rubbing with the hands. This can push dead skin cells down into the pore or cause a layer of skin cover the pore. When pores are blocked, the oil and keratin that are being pumped into can't get out. Pressure builds up and makes the follicle expand like a balloon being filled with water. As a follicle gets larger and larger, this stretch of the follicle walls. Tiny holes can form through which bacteria and other contents in the follicle can leak out. This attracts cells of inflammation, which try to fix the problem. The cells lining the canal start to produce more keratin to shield themselves from the increasing stretch. Unfortunately, this additional keratin adds even more material to the canal. As more and more oil and keratin build up, the follicle can actually burst, causing much and more inflammation. This is the point where we see red bumps and pimples in the skin, what we call acne. The expanded follicles can also rupture from outside pressure, such as from leaning on hands or squeezing by fingers. Yet another reason touching acne-prone areas. So why does acne not typically start until around puberty? This is because before puberty, the oil glands make very little oil, so even if the pore becomes blocked, not much pressure develops. But starting in puberty, hormones stimulate the oil glands to produce more oil, which makes a person more prone to acne because pressures in follicle can build up quickly. Because of genetics, some people can produce 5 to 10 more oil than others. Unfortunately, these people are more acne prone because there is so much material trying to get out the small pore. At the same time, the follicle can expand and rupture even without an actual pore block. Thanks. I hope this information can be useful for you. I am Fernando, and goodbye.
This is Leonardo Macias signing off. Till next time.